Intruder.
An Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer was involved in a deadly shooting today during a traffic stop outside Chicago. An immigrant was killed and the officer was injured. An ICE spokesperson confirming that shooting in a statement to ABC News.
ICE officers say somebody who's in the country illegally has a history of criminal records with reckless driving. They attempted to stop that person. This person stopped initially, then they continued on, hitting an ICE officer, dragging that ICE officer a couple of feet. The ICE officer, according to DHS, feared for their life. They took out their weapon. They shot, ultimately killed that person who was driving the car.
ABC's Luke Barr, the officer, is reported to be in stable condition. Following his death last week, we're learning new details about fashion icon Giorgio Armani's final wishes for his vast fortune.
The 91-year-old fashion designer had rewritten his will last spring, giving 40% control of his fashion empire to his longtime collaborator and another 30% to his niece and nephew, to be split evenly, with the stipulation that they all sell an initial 15% stake in the company within the next 18 months. Armani's foundation will control the remaining 30%. Giorgio Armani's final collection will be presented at Milan Fashion Week starting September 23rd. That date also marking the 50th anniversary of his fashion house. Sherry Preston, ABC News.
Consumer sentiment dropped in September with government data showing a slowdown in hiring along with an uptick in inflation. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Michaela's Mobile Spa, Michaela. Michaela got a quick business insurance quote from Progressive and chose from over 30 customizable coverages. Sure, it helps she's her only employee and does literally everything. But while others would rest on their laurels, Michaela was hard at work saving big. So take that, hypothetical other employee who doesn't exist. Be your own Michaela. See if you could save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Coverage is not available in all states or for all vehicles and coverage selections.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
4:05 now, and with your KVNU News headlines, I'm Will Feely. Continuing our coverage, the man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk had reportedly expressed opposition to the conservative activist viewpoints and had indicated that he was responsible for the shooting. Now, that's what authorities said today as they announced an arrest in the killing that has raised fresh alarms about political violence in a deeply polarized United States. Now, Governor Spencer Cox told a news conference this morning at Utah Valley University that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson had become more political in the run-up to the shooting and mentioned during a family dinner that Kirk would be visiting Utah. Now, the governor also cited as evidence engravings that were found on unspent bullet casings that were found with the rifle in a wooded area just outside the university.
Inscriptions on a fired casing read, "Notices bulges, capital OWO, what's this question mark?" Inscriptions on the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist, exclamation point, catch, exclamation point."
Meanwhile, Robinson has been ordered to be held in jail without bail, and no attorney yet has been listed as a representative of him. In other news, the interim president of Utah State University, Alan L. Smith, has issued a statement condemning the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk, which had occurred earlier this week. In a message that was emailed to all students, faculty, and staff, Smith called the act of violence a tragedy with far-reaching impacts. And he added that it is shocking and painful and that it is natural to feel unsettled in the aftermath. Now, the statement also noted that a similar event was going to be taking place on the Logan campus coming up at the end of this month. Now, Smith affirmed that college campuses must be places where free expression can happen safely, and he condemned violence of any kind. Meanwhile, a vigil still will be held tonight at Utah State to honor the life of Charlie Kirk. KVNU's Carter Chatterton has the story.
The USU chapter of Turning Point USA will be holding a candlelight vigil tonight to honor the life of their late founder, Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated Wednesday afternoon. The political activist was scheduled to speak at Utah State University later this month. Samuel Porter is the vice president of the USU College Republicans, who will be volunteering to help at this event.
Charlie Kirk was an amazing person. He was such a character. He had such a bold personality, and he was really able to engage with the youth on a level that no other political pundit or politician has been able to.
The vigil will start at 8 p.m. at the Quad on the Utah State University campus.
We're having the vigil to honor him and to pay respect to his family.
For KVNU News, this is Carter Chatterton.
Now, everyone is invited to attend that vigil again tonight at 8 o'clock on the Quad. And, well, weather-wise, going to continue to see a chance of some isolated showers, thunderstorms over the next couple of days. Now, that's supposed to clear out by Sunday as temperatures the next several days staying right around the mid-70s, overnight temperatures in the low 50s. Sunday should be mostly clear, and then the chance of some slight showers and thunderstorms returning for next week. And weather brought to you by Quality First Insurance. If you're confused about coverages for your employee benefits package, you need Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. Get more information at q1ins.com. It's Quality First Insurance. And with your KVNU News headlines, I'm Will Feelright, Jason Williams, and KVNU's For the People show coming up next.
Hi there. We're your new neighbors, the Voles. I'm Horrible, and this is my wife, Terrible. Hi! It's been such a great summer, we gotta have an army of children. Now we're fixing to tear up your yard. The only warning sign of us is some surface tunneling holes, and then boom! Yard death! What do you think? Should we get started, Ma? Yep. These guys aren't gonna call the troops at Logan Extermination.
Voles are a problem. They can tear up your lawn and garden. But there is something you can do. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU.
Hola, Cache Valley. Are you ready for the biggest fiesta of the year? The Latino Festival is taking over Center Street in Logan on Saturday, September 13th, and you're invited. Come celebrate with live music, colorful performers, traditional dancing, a festive parade, and of course, delicious food. Bring the whole family and experience the sights, sounds, and flavors that make the Latino culture so rich and beautiful. This year's Latino Festival is made possible by Gosner Foods. From fresh cheese curds and aged cheddar to creamy chocolate milk and ice cream, stock up on all your dairy favorites at Gosner Foods retail store on 10th West. Members First Credit Union, large enough to provide the services you need, small enough to provide the service you deserve. Members First Credit Union. Also by Presto Products, now hiring. Apply for a career today at Presto Products in Lewiston. Mark your calendar Saturday, September 13th on Center Street in Logan for this year's Latino Festival, where culture and community come together.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. Friday, finally. September 12th. I'm Jason Williams. 73 degrees here at 4:11 in the afternoon. Feels almost downright chilly. Warmer temperatures in the forecast. Still some cool nights in the forecast as well. It's starting to feel a bit like the end of summer and heading into fall. So, which is a nice break. It was a hot summer. All right. The big news today, of course, everyone talking about this. Most have at least heard some highlights. We've got the full audio of Governor Cox's remarks today at a press conference where the governor announced early this morning that a suspect had been arrested, and the governor named Charlie Kirk's shooting suspect as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson from Washington County, Utah. During the press conference, they presented evidence. Investigators, Utah County Sheriff, FBI Director, and others just kind of laid out everything they had and also how they went about apprehending this young man, which really comes down to the family. This young man's family turned him in. We'll talk later in the show about this. Your heart goes out to you know after after you process some of this, you start thinking about the families, Charlie Kirk's wife and two very young children who will grow up with this being something that everyone saw, the murder of their father. The family of the shooter, this young man's dad had to confront him after seeing the videos and then hold him. The details on how, we don't know, but he secured him, it was said in the press release, until authorities arrived after he called them and said, I think it was my son. Imagine. I don't know, heartbreaking all around. We'll talk more about some of the reaction to this around Utah and some of the early lessons, I think, from this, specifically on how we all, after the event, get and consume our information. But before we get to any of that, again, full audio here of what Governor Cox had to say, including his opening remarks and detailing of the case, and then followed by what was, in the end, a pretty emotional Q&A the governor took part in from the press conference early this morning.
On the evening of September 11th, a family member of Tyler Robinson reached out to a family friend who contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office with information that Robinson had confessed to them or implied that he had committed the incident. This information was relayed to the Utah County Sheriff's Office and scene investigators at Utah Valley University. This information was also conveyed to the FBI. Investigators reviewed additional video footage from UVU surveillance and identified Robinson arriving on UVU campus in a gray Dodge Challenger at approximately 8:29 a.m. on September 10th, in which he is observed on video in a plain maroon t-shirt, light-colored shorts, a black hat with a white logo, and light-colored shoes. When encountered in person by investigators in Washington County on September 12th, in the early morning hours, Robinson was observed in consistent clothing with those surveillance images. Investigators interviewed a family member of Robinson who stated that Robinson had become more political in recent years. The family member referenced a recent incident in which Robinson came to dinner prior to September 10th, and in the conversation with another family member, Robinson mentioned Charlie Kirk was coming to UVU. They talked about why they didn't like him and the viewpoints that he had. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. The family member also confirmed Robinson had a gray Dodge Challenger. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed that roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact named Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. The content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. Messages from the contact Tyler also mentioned that he had changed outfits. I know there has been speculation as well as to the writing on those casings, those bullet casings, and I believe we have that as well. And I will share.
Not sure what happened to the audio there. The governor went on to detail during this press conference the writing on the casings. These, for everyone over the age of 25, maybe 30, these are going to make no sense. The inscriptions on the casings, the etchings, were notices, bulges, capital OWO, what's this? Hey, fascist catch. And, oh, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Chow, Chow. And the third casing reading, if you read this, you are gay, LMAO. The governor then went on to detail the process of apprehending him and more. And in the end, turned the time over to Utah County Sheriff and the FBI director, who basically, the Utah County Sheriff thanked the public on this, saying that the public support and helping spread the photos released yesterday and more were a big part of this investigation. In fact, the Utah County Sheriff basically attributed the success of their investigation to the public. He said the public did the real work here, sharing the information we put out from the screenshots from the surveillance video of this individual. And the FBI director mentioned, basically praised Utah law enforcement and the governor's office, Utah Department of Public Safety, for heading up the investigation. And in the end, now I know a lot of folks are trying to make sense of those messages. Who knows, honestly? Most of us, myself included, listening today as they read those are too old to understand, the going online gamer speak. But this is part of a culture of online culture. So these, not code phrases really, but popular phrases specifically centered around a game called Helldivers 2, in which it's a cooperative shooting game where you're fighting alien threats all around the galaxy and part of this elite force. And but it's very popular for message boards. Some of the information that has come out since the press conference this morning on the message board postings that can be attributed allegedly to the shooting suspect have been discussed a lot. But that is the short and sweet of it. 22-year-old man spent a semester as a college student at USU before dropping out, and then it appears spending a lot of time online since then until committing this atrocious act this week. I know it doesn't answer all the questions we all have, but it is more information than we had yesterday. On the other side, Governor Cox also fielded questions in what became a pretty emotional Q&A after the press conference today. We've got that audio for you as well. We'll get to that right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Hey, get prepared for the hunting season. Did you remember to bring your hunting gear, your sleeping bags, and coats into Mount Logan Laundry? With their 55 and 80-pound washers and dryers, they can do any job. And while you're at it, bring in the comforters and blankets and get ready for the colder months ahead. Try Mount Logan Laundry. For a few quarters, you can use their large-capacity washers and dryers and be done in no time. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. They're at the corner of 5th East and 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham on the corner of 1st East and 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town.
Join in the fun Saturday, September 27th for the 3rd annual Center Street Giant Pumpkin Festival. This family fun event will run from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on historic Center Street in Logan. This is an all-day fall celebration with Center Street coming to life with live music, food, art, children's activities, and lots of giant pumpkins on display as they fight for the title of Center Street Giant. For more info, go to centerstreetgiant.com or call 752-2345. Sponsored by Cache Valley Bank and Anderson Seed and Garden.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air, it's more than just service. They provide top-quality installations for both residential and commercial spaces. So you're not just getting equipment, you're getting a whole team of professionals dedicated to making sure you and your family truly feel the love. Whether it's a brand new installation or replacing an old system, trust the experts who care. Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com.
This This is Paul from Sweetwater Winter Cleaning. If you live near trees, you probably look up and see leaves clogging up your gutters. Yep, it does look bad. The greater problem is that if the gutters and downspouts are blocked, it can lead to rainwater or snowmelt running over the gutters and potentially flooding the basement. As someone who climbs ladders daily, I strongly advise you to let the professionals take care of this. Call now and receive 35% discount.
Sweetwater Window Cleaning, 3636543, 3636543.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. When it comes to home care, it's important for you to know you do have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of home care services, remember Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient, not the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Call for a free home safety evaluation, 787-1369, and visit primrosecare.com. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Audio now from a press conference that took place early this morning. They were able to air it in its entirety on the morning show this morning. I caught it then myself. For those who didn't, a few highlights from the press conference here. Again, Governor Cox naming the Charlie Kirk shooting suspect as a 22-year-old young man from Washington County, Utah. The authorities, alongside the governor, director of the FBI, Utah County Sheriff, and others, Department of Public Safety representative, detailed the investigation and how they were able to apprehend this individual, which basically comes down to a family member contacting a friend of the family who contacted the authorities. And we have learned since as well that this young man's father held his son. I don't know if that is physically or locked in the house, or we don't have those details, but after the contact was made, he made sure his son stayed there until authorities arrived to make the arrest. And yeah, imagine being that father. We'll get to some of the reaction to all of this on the other side of the news, but jumping right back in here, after the details of the investigation were laid out and explained at the press conference today, Governor Cox stepped back up to the podium and took some questions from the media and got a bit emotional, talking about some of his takeaways from all of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I get the microphone, so I hope you'll permit me a moment just to share a few more thoughts about where we are and how we got here, and maybe a little bit of where we go from here. I don't want to get too preachy, but I think it's important that we, with eyes wide open, understand what's happening in our country today. I've heard people say, well, why are we so invested in this? There's violence happening all across our country, and violence is tragic everywhere, and every life taken is a child of God who deserves our love and respect and dignity. This is certainly about the tragic death, political assassination of Charlie Kirk. But it is also much bigger than an attack on an individual. It is an attack on all of us. It is an attack on the American experiment. It is an attack on our ideals. This cuts to the very foundation of who we are, of who we have been, and who we could be in better times. Political violence is different than any other type of violence for lots of different reasons. One, because in the very act that Charlie championed of expression, that freedom of expression that is enshrined in our founding documents, in having his life taken in that very act, makes it more difficult for people to feel like they can share their ideas, that they can speak freely. We will never be able to solve all the other problems, including the violence problems that people are worried about, if we can't have a clash of ideas safely and securely. Even, especially those ideas with which you disagree. That's why this matters so much. Over the last 48 hours, I have been as angry as I have ever been, as sad as I have ever been. And it was, as anger pushed me to the brink, it was actually Charlie's words that pulled me back. I'd like to share some of those. And specifically right now, if I could, I need to talk to the young people in our state, in my state, and all across the country. As President Trump reminded me, he said, you know who really loved Charlie? The youths. And he's right. Young people loved Charlie, and young people hated Charlie. And Charlie went into those places anyway. And these are the words that have helped me. Charlie said, when people stop talking, that's when you get violence. He said, the weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. The only way out of the labyrinth of suffering is to forgive. Welcome without judgment, love without condition, forgive without limit. He said, always forgive your enemies. Nothing annoys them so much. A few months ago, I referenced this last night, Charlie posted to social media, when things are moving very fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember, internet fury is not real life. It's going to be okay. He again said, when you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to commit violence. He said, what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have a reasonable agreement, where violence is not an option. Now, again, to my young friends out there, you are inheriting a country where politics feels like rage. It feels like rage is the only option. But through those words, we have a reminder that we can choose a different path. Your generation has an opportunity to build a culture that is very different than what we are suffering through right now. Not by pretending differences don't matter, but by embracing our differences and having those hard conversations. I think we need more moral clarity right now. I hear all the time that words are violence. Words are not violence. Violence is violence. And there is one person responsible for what happened here. And that person is now in custody and will be charged soon and will be held accountable. And yet, all of us have an opportunity right now to do something different. I want to thank my fellow Utahns. This bad stuff happens. For 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I had hoped for, just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. And it was one of us. But I want you to look at how Utahns reacted the last 2 nights. There was no rioting. There was no looting. There were no cars set on fire. There was no violence. there were vigils and prayers and people coming together to share the humanity. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I believe is the answer to this. We can return violence with violence. We can return hate with hate. And that's the problem with political violence, is it metastasizes. Because we can always point the finger at the other side. And at some point, we have to find an off-ramp, or it's going to get much, much worse. But see, these are choices that we can make. History will dictate if this is a turning point for our country. But every single one of us gets to choose right now if this is a turning point for us.
Governor Cox, again, speaking at the press conference this morning. You can see the entire press conference via the link on our Facebook page and also a link in the story at cachevalleydaily.com. That was the majority of it there. The governor did most of the speaking, but if you'd like to see remarks by law enforcement and more with details of how they began and finished this investigation, that part in the full video and audio, again, linked on our Facebook page and in the story at cachevalleydaily.com. Again, this morning, breaking news during the morning show, Craig Will and J.D. Stepped aside to run the press conference. The governor announcing a 22-year-old Utah man from Washington County in custody as the suspect in a Charlie Kirk shooting. On the other side, a lot of speculation today and discussion about the inscriptions on the shell casings, a T-pose. The suspect, before climbing on the building with his weapon, turned to a surveillance camera and did a T-pose. And a lot of older people, myself included, discussing what is that. It's gaming culture. It's online culture. And I think there is a discussion to be had around that. And so did Gene Park, the Washington Post gaming critic and resident Gen Z member there at the Washington Post. A little bit of what he had to say about the too online culture that he says is making life difficult for kids. We'll talk about that after these headlines with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. The man accused of assassinating Charlie Kirk is being held without bail this afternoon at the Utah County Jail. Now, a court affidavit says that Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old, was arrested on suspicion of aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily harm, and obstruction of justice. Now, formal charges are expected early next week. Utah Governor Spencer Cox, during a press conference earlier today, said that Robinson had become more political recently and had indicated to a family friend afterward that he was responsible for the assassination. Now, Cox cited as evidence the engravings on the bullets found in a rifle and also chatting app messages that a roommate had shared with law enforcement.
Messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also refer to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique.
Now, meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered for a candlelight vigil to honor conservative activist Charlie Kirk last night. Attendees held up their phone flashlights to light up Orem's City Center Park, which had a makeshift memorial of flowers, candles, and notes. Now, Orem Mayor David Young addressed the crowd, noting that the park is usually known for its festive holiday displays, but he said instead of the holiday lights, the attendees were holding lights to remind them that darkness never has the last word. Now, the vigil also included moments of prayer, singing, and remarks from community members. The event was held under visible security with dozens of law enforcement officers present. Of course, a candlelight vigil is also being scheduled to take place tonight at Utah State University on the Quad. It's being organized by the local chapter of Turning Point, which was the organization that Kirk had co-founded. In other news, 2 Box Elder County residents were killed and a juvenile was critically injured in a 3-vehicle crash that happened earlier this week in southeast Idaho. Now, the Idaho State Police said that a car carrying a 47-year-old man from Fielding and a 45-year-old woman from Tremonton, along with a juvenile, was traveling near 700 North, 100 West in Malad City at around 9:15 Wednesday night when it went off the road. Now, the driver overcorrected, causing the vehicle to roll and to hit two unoccupied vehicles on the other side of the street. The man and woman, who were not wearing seatbelts, were taken by ambulance to a local hospital where they died from their injuries. Meanwhile, the juvenile, who was wearing a seatbelt, was taken by air ambulance to a different hospital with critical injuries. Law enforcement say they are continuing to investigate the crash. It reportedly blocked the roadway for several hours. Well, we're going to continue to see very small chance of some isolated thunderstorms possible from some of these clouds, as we did have a few raindrops earlier this morning. And as we head into the weekend, temperatures are going to stay right around the mid-70s each day. More sunshine expected for Sunday, and then that chance of some isolated showers and thunderstorms returning for the first of next week. And it's Roof Rescue that brings you weather as part of the news here at the bottom of the hour. From minor repairs to complete roof replacement, remember Roof Rescue, online at roofrescueusa.com. And with your KVNU News headlines, I'm Will Feelright.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. Police released new video Thursday evening showing how the suspect in the Charlie Kirk murder escaped from a campus building after firing a single shot. The suspect can be seen running off the side of a building, scaling it, crossing a street, and running into a wooded area. That's where officials say police found the suspected weapon. Governor Spencer Cox says that the public's been very helpful with the information they've submitted.
The public has answered our call for action. So far, we've received more than 7,000 leads and tips. I would just note that the FBI hasn't received this many digital media tips from the public since the Boston Marathon bombing.
A midshipman at the U.S. Naval Academy is in stable condition after being shot as security personnel were in the process of clearing a building, according to a U.S. official. It happened during a campus lockdown. 2 people killed in a helicopter crash outside Allentown, Pennsylvania, Thursday. The NTSB will investigate. This is ABC News.
Hey there, quick question. Wouldn't it be nice if your home stayed cool in the summer and warm in the winter without your HVAC working overtime? With Cardinal Spray Foam insulation, it can. They use an insulation that seals the gaps you didn't know you had, keeping air in, comfort up, and energy bills down. I guarantee you'll feel the difference. Plus, you could qualify for a $1,200 tax credit. Call 755-5012 or look them up online. Cardinal's Insulation, 755-5012.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
Hi, this is Brooke with Adams Wealth Advisors. Stocks closed the day mostly unchanged on Friday, holding near record high as the market heads into the weekend. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by 274 points to 45,834. The Nasdaq rose 0.42% to 24,092, and the S&P 500 fell by 0.05% to 6,584. Sector performance showed somewhat bearish results. Communication services, consumer discretionary, and utilities are the only sectors ending the day in green, driven largely by fantastic runs of Tesla, Warner Bros., and Paramount Skydance. The bond market saw yields rebound moderately, with the 5-year Treasury yield nudged up 5.5 basis points to 3.63%, and the 10-year yield rose by 6 basis points to 4.07%. We have the release of preliminary University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, which fell again to a 4-month low. The different gauges of the index showed that consumer expectations fell significantly, and the current conditions gauge edged down slightly, while long-term inflation expectations drifted upward further. The downward trend of consumer sentiment is particularly obvious for low to middle income consumers. Consumers are now more fearful of losing their jobs, and most of them also feel squeezed by the persistence of high prices. This adds to future inflation uncertainties because businesses may become more hesitant to pass costs on to consumers. This week, stocks hit another all-time high as the labor market continues to show deterioration, paving the way for future rate cuts. Next week, we will have important economic indicators such as retail sales and home builder confidence. Nevertheless, the single most important and anticipated event will be the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, when the Federal Reserve is highly expected to lower interest rates and deliver future guidance on the interest rate path. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about how today's market's trends connect to your retirement, join us Thursday, September 18th at 12:30 p.m. at Adams Wealth Advisors in Logan. Reserve your spot at www.adamswealthadvisors.com/event.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Hi, it's Julie from the Visitors Bureau in Logan. Join the Cache Valley Historical Society this Saturday, September 13th for the annual Historic Home Tour. Enjoy the craftsmanship inside 6 beautifully preserved and restored homes in Logan and Wellsville. As a special bonus, the Federal Building at 160 North Main and the Cache Museum inside will also be open. Tickets are only $15 and you can buy them at the homes the day of. Details at explorelogan.com/homes. explorelogan.com/homes.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Again, you can watch or listen to the full press conference from early this morning. Governor Cox announcing a 22-year-old Utah man from Washington County had been apprehended and is the suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting. Link to that in the CacheValleyDaily.com story, which I've also linked to on our Facebook page. There's been a lot of speculation throughout the day on the messages written on the shell casings that the governor detailed, and since then some information that's come out about messages and postings by this 22-year-old Utah man, allegedly the shooter in this horrible event this week here in Utah, and things that he said online. This is where I take off my political junkie hat and put on my nerd hat because I can speak with a modicum of expertise about this. I have to, part of my day job requires me to read about and understand current online trends. What's getting people's attention and how is it getting people's attention, that kind of thing. You can call it marketing if you want, but it's a bit different in this day and age because it changes every 24 hours. But I also ran across 2 fascinating articles, if you'd like to read them yourself. One by the Washington Post resident Gen Z writer, one of their youngest journalists, who also is their gaming critic, who noticed some things in the inscriptions on the shell casings announced by Governor Cox today and wrote about them in the Washington Post. Also, online gaming news site Polygon has a lengthy article on the inscriptions on the shell casings. Why? What does this have to do with gaming? 3 of the 4 messages the governor detailed today written on the shell casings come from and are most widely used in an online gaming community centered around a game called Helldivers 2. This was first released on PlayStation 5 but last year. And it is basically kind of like a Starship Troopers sort of thing. You're an elite military force fighting aliens that are trying to work their way through the galaxy to invade Earth, and you're out there in the galaxy trying to stop them. But there's this theme, this subplot of this Helldivers game or universe, if you will, where you're also you're trying to spread democracy because the aliens are authoritarian fascists. And so a lot of people have said, what are the politics of the shooter? And I get it. We all try to make sense of this. But the kids were the first ones to kind of speak up today and say, hey, this isn't politics. This is Helldiver 2. Hey Fascist Catch is actually one of the characters in the game screams at a certain point in the game. There were some other messages that are just used widely by gamers, not necessarily centered around this specific game, Helldivers 2. Notices bulges, OWO, what's this? One of the inscriptions on a shell casing is apparently, it can be used as either an anti-gay slur in these gaming message boards, but it can also be someone making fun of someone who's anti-gay. There were other postings on message boards in which there's been a lot of speculation today about this young man being a groyper because of some posts where he used the Pepe the Frog meme. And a groyper is a certain faction of the online far right that is built up around an individual named Nick Fuentes, who is an open white supremacist, who also incidentally hated Charlie Kirk. He thought Charlie Kirk was a sellout. He thought he had betrayed his whiteness by being too open to going to college campuses and elevating non-whites. And so this far right faction, not fans of Charlie Kirk, who was more sort of in the mainstream of at least the online right, which is also different than the mainstream of the Republican right. Anyway, it's complicated, but the kids, again, were quick to point out, well, no, the messages posted allegedly by this alleged shooter used, and I'm explaining this to explain how complicated this is, to understand that it's almost like an entirely different language, but anyone under the age of 25 right now speaks it. But the kids, Gene Park at Washington Post reporting today, were the first ones to spot this and say, no. You can't conclude from these Pepe the Frog memes that this alleged shooter was a Nick Fuentes following white supremacist because he was using the skinny Pepe the Frog. This one I was actually familiar with. If someone uses a more pudgy, round-faced, it's a cartoon frog, by the way, that comes from a now 15-year-old comic book. But if someone uses an emoji or a profile that is the sort of a fatter, more toad-looking Pepe the Frog, that's the groyper version, the white supremacist version. If they use the skinny, cartoony frog from the original comic book, that's just someone being very online and being cool. So that one I'd actually read and done some research on before because that's a very popular one. But all this is to say, as I read through these articles, and you can too if you'd like to read more about the tie-in with some of these shell casing messages to Helldivers 2. The other message, to get back to that, the Oh Bella Chow, Bella Chow, Bella Chow Chow Chow, that's also from the game. I'm not sure what, or I couldn't, my own education on this and anything I could read today, I'm not sure what the shell casing inscription, if you read this, you're gay, LMAO. I have no idea where that might come from, but notices bulges, OWO, is online in these gaming chat rooms used as either someone expressing anti-gay sentiment or making fun of someone who is expressing anti-gay sentiment. Hey, fascist catch is a line from the Helldivers 2 game. So is the Obella inscription. Anyway, I point all this out to say that as I've processed this, someone asked recently, why haven't you talked about this? And here's the short version of it. I sometimes wonder if that's the problem. This goes back to, and I'm speaking about everything that happened since the tragic assassination, I think is the proper word to use here. People have objected to that because he's not an elected official. I don't think that matters. I think that this was a political assassination. Even if the shooter may not have been motivated by any particular political position, and there's little evidence to suggest that, it was a political move. But I think what we're dealing with here, tragically, is the same thing as a school shooter, just taking it to a different venue. And what I mean by that is, in a lot of these situations with school shootings, what we've found is a young, troubled person seeking some kind of twisted version of fame and notoriety. And we can have long conversations and speculate widely about what leads a young person to that point. But it looks more and more like that is what we're dealing with here. And we have to have a conversation about that. I don't know what the solution is. I do know one thing that I can say about everything that's happened since the assassination of Charlie Kirk Wednesday here in Utah. I think all of us need to pause for a minute and reflect a bit on how we get our information. I saw some people blaming the parents today, saying, how did they not know their son was spending this much time in these gaming chat rooms or was having, issues that should have been obvious? Not many parents have control over their 18-year-old. I would imagine you have even less control over every action of a 22-year-old. So let's not do that. And imagine being these parents. Imagine having to hold your son while the authorities arrive to collect your son and knowing that your son allegedly committed this act. Some empathy is due there. Empathy towards Charlie Kirk's wife and two very young children. But also let's step back and talk about and think about how we all consume media. I've talked about this before on the show. We need to remember to distinguish between different types of media, different types of information. There's many people I know who will confuse what I do here on For the People with what, say, Will does in every news break. They're different things. You can learn a lot from an interview I do or a story I talk about or even an opinion I express. At very least, hopefully it makes you think. But remember, my job is to entertain you. My job is to keep you listening and get you coming back each day. That's also Sean Hannity's job. That's also the panel of talking heads on CNN or Fox. That's their job. Their job is to entertain you while talking about the news and maybe informing you, sure, hopefully informing you. But also their job is to entertain you and keep you coming back. And I think my generation, that was our big concern. We're not separating straight up news from someone's opinion about the news. And we're running with what Jason Williams says or what Sean Hannity says and just calling that the truth. And we should all do a better job of reading multiple sources and multiple points of view. Back in the day, I'll date myself here, but I like to force myself to read both Daily Kos, a very far left news site that with opinion mixed into the news coverage, and Red State, which I don't even know if that exists anymore, which was a very far right leaning version of Daily Kos. And I used to read both about the same story because it was a way to remind yourself there are different perspectives on straight up news stories. But separate that, a third layer of separation, from just reading the news at, say, CashValleyDaily.com. And too much, we mix all of these things. And I think cable news was a big contributor to that problem. Now we're dealing with social media, and it's worse, way worse. And we saw that play out so much this week. And this isn't to say cut your kids off from the internet. Don't let them play the games or sit in the messaging chats, things like that. No, I think that can be harmful to kids in a different way. Isolation, and also you just have to recognize this is the world we live in, for better or worse. This is how we communicate with each other now. But maybe we should all talk to each other. And definitely if you're a parent, maybe we should talk to our kids about what they're experiencing, what they're exposed to online. Again, this isn't to blame this individual's parents, the young man arrested today. This isn't to blame anyone for contributing individually to this environment in any way or what happened to Charlie Kirk. This is to say, I think we all need to kind of pause and think about where we're at and the level of anger out there. You know, I joke all the time about that one relative we all have that likes to bring up politics and kind of shove his or her political opinion in your face at the family barbecue. And they never notice that everyone just kind of shuts up and awkwardly steps off and changes the subject. Now imagine everyone living in a world in which you've got an audience of 10,000 to hear your unsolicited opinions. That's what social media has done to us. And it's, I think, warped what we're willing to call being informed to some extent. We should think about that, at least. We'll be back right after this.
This is Andy Hernandez, partner at Jones Simpkins, certified public accountants. Meet us in downtown Logan on Saturday, September 20th for the Cytiva Top of Utah Marathon. Jones Simpkins is proud to be an official race partner of the Cytiva Top of Utah Marathon and hope you will join us in downtown Logan for this fun event on Saturday, September 20th. Find out more at topofutahmarathon.com.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
My name is Rob Phelps, and I work with the hospice team at the Sunshine Terrace Foundation. When people ask what I do for a living, I tell them I work in hospice, helping individuals and their families navigate one of the most difficult and vulnerable times of life. This year, we thank you for recognizing Sunshine Hospice as your gold-winning hospice in the best of northern Utah. But the real rewards are helping your loved ones experience a more comfortable, peaceful, and dignified end-of-life journey. To learn more, visit sunshineterrace.org.
This is Clay from Canyon Plumbing and Heating. Fall is here, and those chilly Cache Valley nights aren't far behind. Let us check your furnace, boiler, or plumbing so you don't have to worry when the cold hits. Don't wait until you're stuck without heat. Call today and mention this commercial for 10% off your next service. Call Canyon Plumbing and Heating at 435-881-6952. Canyon Plumbing and Heating, keeping Cache Valley warm since 2005.
The Aggies come back home this week to Merlin Olsen Field to take on Air Force. J.D. Walker and Stockton Jukes with you on Aggie Game Day. We'll be kicking off at 5:45. Stockton, how do you feel about the Aggies coming back home to take on Air Force?
It's going to be a great one. That academy loves to run the ball. Utah State's looking physical this year. I'm excited to get to the field and see what they got.
Join Stockton and I as Aggie Game Day. All the coverage kicks off at 5:45 this Saturday right here on KVNU, the home of the Aggies.
That's it for hour one of today's show, but hope you'll stick around for the People movie show with Andy Morgan coming up in just a few minutes. We've got a lot to talk about. The Conjuring Last Rites, a football training camp themed horror movie called Him, and Stephen King's The Long Walk, the short story that scared me more than anything as a kid. That's next here on KVNU Logan.